Victoria 3 is by far the most important game to Paradox's survival as a company right now. But the burning question on everyone's mind once Victoria 3 hit 63% on Steam was, will this game even survive? Will it go the way of Imperator Rome and be left in the dirt?
Hey, disconnected!
Or will it rise from the 60% upvote ashes and become the new Hearts of Iron 4? No matter what you think, I know this time is different than Imperator Rome. And let's get into why that is right away. But first, make sure you subscribe to the channel for even more Paradox content you never know if you love or hate, as I do provide my uncensored, honest opinions on this channel. And I'd love to hear yours as well. Players determine whether a game is worth investing more money into. It really just comes down to cold hard cash. I mean, take a look at these absolutely insane numbers. Imperator Rome, like Victoria 3, had massive issues at launch, and was very much a half-baked game. It got fixed as time went on and actually became an amazing game in its own right, but it got left by the wayside just as that happened. Now the reason for this is simple. Imperator Rome just didn't have enough players. These numbers tell us that Imperator Rome had an okay start, but look at what's happening right here. The game was effectively abandoned by gamers only 2 weeks after launch, dropping in numbers by about 70%. That's insane. Got even worse the week after, and of course, with only 500 players a day, it's effectively dead. And was de facto dropped when Paradox announced they would freeze development until further notice. So how is this horror example compared to other Paradox games? Well, this is insane. Look at EU4. Launching in 2013 with about 15,000 players, it has consistently risen and become even more popular than it ever was in the first 5 years, peaking with an unbelievable 48,000 players in 2020. Hearts of Iron 4 is an even crazier example. It began really well, sporting 41,000 players at launch before dropping down to a weekly average of about 10 to 20,000. But then something happened. The game got better with time and much more content, not only reaching a weekly average higher than its launch day numbers, but even peaking in September of 2022, just 2 damn months ago. And so how are Victoria 3's numbers? Well, despite the initial hate from parts of the fanbase, Victoria 3 turns out to be the third most successful launch in Paradox history, with
Hello there.
players on the opening weekend, with the only ones above being Stellaris and Crusader Kings 3. It has of course just been a week, but daily peaks have remained around or above 40,000 ever since. This bodes really well for the game and is the main reason why Victoria 3 won't be abandoned like Imperator was. Alright, so we know what Victoria 3 is like right now, but what might the game look like in 2025, assuming it hasn't been abandoned? Judging by the Steam Workshop, there is a clear demand for particular kinds of content, primarily dealing with UI optimizations and flavor. So for our very first 2025 prediction, Victoria 3's UI will have been optimized. I think this game's UI has a solid foundation, but it appears almost untested, as there are so many windows that either appear missing or just take up way too much space. This is primarily why some of the mods on Steam actually deal with making more of the UI fit into the screen at any point, to make things easier to see. This absolutely has to be fixed by 2025, and if we take a look at the official plans for just the first 3 major patches to the game, UI optimization is an obvious focus for the foreseeable future. Some main additions remain though, like making it easier to adjust trade and see overviews based on countries rather than just goods, to get a full overview of the battlefield and why things are happening the way they are, the same going for navies, and just more information in general. When so many players are asking for it, there's little doubt that Paradox will have the UI completely fixed by 2025. On to the second prediction. Victoria 3 will feature much more flavor. One of the main complaints about the game is that it doesn't feel too diverse at the moment, meaning that most factions feature the same event images, the same names for laws and governments, the same symbols for every interest group, and so on and so forth. And even while some factions like the Ottoman Empire and the United States feature some highly unique missions and events, this could be deepened especially for other countries out there. And compared to other Paradox games where such uniqueness is everywhere, there's no doubt that this will remain here as well. That's why I believe that by 2025, we will see many more unique aspects enter various countries around the world. Now these likely won't be available for free though, and I assume we will get unique events and other content as parts of massive new expansions, or as smaller flavor packs that enhance certain regions at a time. Imagine a Franco-Prussian flavor pack focusing on the French and the Prussians, a Revolutions of 1848 pack going deeper into the social unrest of revolution management, a Alliance of the North pack enhancing the interplay between the Scandinavian factions, and much more all around the world. I guarantee flavor packs and flavor content in general will be high on the agenda, so expect an infinitely more unique game and flavorful countries by 2025 than what we have right now. The third prediction for 2025 is that Victoria 3 will offer specific international grand events like the Scramble for Africa, which will have wide-ranging diplomatic consequences. Perhaps it will work in a way where great powers with an interest in Africa are invited to take part in the Congress of Berlin, or whoever decides to host it, and based on rank and other modifiers, spheres of influences will be handed out. The same goes for a World War I event, I imagine. I imagine this working kind of like the 30 Years' War does in EU4. Imagine at one point, something like a tension meter is introduced or something that makes tensions rise between the great powers. Again, kind of like with religious tensions in EU4. After a while, decisions are made and events transpire, and the great powers, if they have incentive to do so, either for alliances, prestige, or other factors, are encouraged to choose sides between the Central and Entente powers, or whatever names are appropriate. I imagine such a war or system could potentially transpire anywhere. So imagine if an industrialized Ottoman Empire, China, Japan, and a unified India decided to duke it out. This could trigger such an event, especially if European great powers also joined in to secure their interests in the region. Our fourth prediction deals with warfare, and is arguably the most difficult one to foresee. I believe the warfare system itself is interesting enough to stand on its own feet with a few tweaks, but the battles themselves are missing a lot of interesting mechanics right now. Sadly though, Paradox have stated that they have no intention to move backwards to a more tactical system, although when it comes down to it, we all know nothing is set in stone, and there are various ways of interpreting this. Not moving back to a more tactical system does not mean that we cannot have more tactical mechanics implemented, does not mean that we cannot have more tactical mechanics implemented, and doesn't mean that battles won't change at all. I choose to believe that battles indeed will see a revamp by 2025, and although it won't become Hearts of Iron 4, it might become more province-specific, as in where to focus advances, perhaps having more battles occurring at once, and indeed hopefully more animations present during wars. For our fifth and final prediction for Victoria 3 in 2025, we will have not just one, but a few overhaul mods that add some crazy new scenarios. I believe that Victoria 3 might be the Paradox game with the most potential for mods, as all the mechanics in the game, perhaps except for the warfare, but even that, would work with virtually every time period out there. My personal biggest hope in terms of mods for this game is that we will have a mod beginning with the American Revolution in 1776 and ending in something like 1991 with the fall of the Soviet Union. I really think the mechanics are all there for that, and once the modders truly get their hands on this game and are allowed to go crazy, I really think they'll embrace it just like they have with Hearts of Iron 4. Honestly, Victoria 3 is much better suited to other time periods than every other Paradox game out there, and I hope that by 2025, we will indeed find ourselves in the golden age of Vicky 3 modding. Unless of course the game is dead.